Today, I want to talk about something I brought up before, although not recently, but basically growing anti-Israeli sentiments here in the U.S. and anti-Jewish sentiments as a greater whole. And the reason why I think this is because of the actions that the Israeli government is taking. Number one being the genocide that's going on against Gaza and the Palestinian people. But then number two, also in more recent news, all of the actions going on around Charlie Kirk. And there's a lot of different ways that they're doing this, but a perfect example of it, and basically no matter what you think happened with Charlie Kirk, what is undeniable is that there are a lot of people who are pro-Israel who are trying to censor speech in the United States against people who are even with them in their cause of Zionism. But they say one little thing against them, and then all of a sudden they try to ostracize them and turn them into their enemies, which is not a good tactic. And the problem with that is that a lot of people in the US see that, and then they want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And understandably so, if I'm being frank. And so what I want to do is I want to cover, Megyn Kelly made a video recently where she goes over this, and I think she basically spells it out very clearly, and you can see this happening from someone who was on the Israeli side, which I think gives you a perfect insight into how Charlie Kirk was probably feeling. And so I just want to watch this, show it, because it is a point that I have been making for months, talking about Gaza, where we're seeing this genocide being carried out. And so now that is stoking, and we're seeing our government capitulating to Israel's every whim. And so, hey, guess what? Now that is stoking anti-Israeli sentiments here in the U.S. And so, just very interesting. Let's get into it, and then I'll provide commentary as well.
As you may know, there is a campaign with which I've had almost nothing to do on Charlie Kirk's feelings about Israel before he was killed. We did one segment on this show last Wednesday with the guys from Fifth Column where I played 4 minutes of an exchange that Charlie and I had on August 6th about that very subject, because as far as I know, I'm one of the only ones who actually has Charlie on tape talking about that a month before he was killed. And so my position is you don't have to wonder how Charlie was feeling about the situation with Israel. Here he is on camera telling you. So that.
And the important thing about that is, A, it's not speculation, which I think is a huge problem that people are having with Bibi Netanyahu and a bunch of people who are Israeli aligned, trying to claim that, oh, this is what Charlie said and this is what he thought. No, this is in his own words how he thought about the issue, which is very strong. What better way can you do that? And it's not disingenuous. And that's one of the things that I think is turning people against Israel, is that when they're trying to basically claim someone as, oh, he was the most pro-Zionist, most pro-Israel, and that's not the reality that we saw leading up to his assassination. And then number two, that's called free speech. And I think that's important to lay out, because I think anyone who's paid attention to this at all knows that Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk have been attacked for their free speech on this topic, and calling out being attacked by the very same people that they're essentially on the same side as. So then what happens then is that it turns them, their supporters like Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk, against them, because they're saying, well, if you're going to attack me, well, then screw you. And so again, and all of that, well, then that's going to turn their audiences firmly, although I think they're trending that way anyway, firmly against Israel, and for good reason.
So that is why I ran that segment. And I explained to the audience the reason that I was doing it is because There was a lot of talk about Charlie and Israel. Candace Owens had brought it up and others had brought it up. And she had reporting about a meeting with Bill Ackman, allegedly putting pressure on Charlie to be more pro-Israel right after his Turning Point event. I've heard that same reporting from others, but I wasn't weighing in on that one way or the other. I wasn't there and I didn't have my own sourcing on that. I was just...
And that's the thing, is when you're hearing it from so many people, as well as the people who are closest to Charlie, it's basically undeniable. Like, you can't try and dress that up in any sort of way. And so that's why I think it's important that she released what she had with them talking about it, because 100%, it needs to be brought to light, and is so damning when you're seeing these people all try and rush and say, oh, this is what he stood for, this is what he thought, he's so close to us, but then all of the other people who are close to him are saying the exact opposite of that, in varying degrees of coming out and calling them out. But I think what they're all unified in saying is that, no, he was having serious questions about it, and oh, by the way, this is a false representation of his feelings.
Trying to say, if this is in the news right now, I've got him. Most people didn't even know we did that interview. A lot of people listen to the show, but not everybody. So here it is. Let me play this for you in his own words. And in that exchange, you can go back and listen to it. We replayed it again last Wednesday. But the sum and substance of it was Charlie was saying he did feel unfairly attacked by some who are pro-Israel for mild criticism he'd been offering as of late about Israel. He didn't like it. He didn't like being called an anti-Semite. He felt
And the entire reason why he was offering those criticisms is because he goes to the school and he talks with his constituency on a regular basis. And so you can't treat it like an ostrich and shove your head in the sand. Like, you need to, if you're being confronted with it over and over and you're hearing very real criticisms, and when you're trying to argue the opposing viewpoint, you have no real argumentation for why Israel is allowed to be committing a genocide, or why the entire United States government seems to be so pro-Israel, even at the detriment of our own citizens. Well, then what is that? And you can't just hand wave it away. Like, we're not that stupid. And so that is the thing, is he has to ask those questions. In fact, it is morally irresponsible for him to ignore those questions, because he needs to run it up the chain of command and say, hey, Trump, guess what? People are not happy with what's going on. This is a recurring message that I'm hearing over and over again, and I'm looking like an idiot trying to defend it. And oh, by the way, my viewpoint on him is he was truly in belief of his faith, and that is what drove him. And so, oh, by the way, also, when people are bringing up points of how are you a Christian and how are you espousing these beliefs on the sanctity of life, but then tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in Gaza are dying who are innocent, what is that? You can't, you look like a hypocrite. And if he actually believes in what he preaches, well, then you have to stay morally consistent. And I think he was, and I think that's why he was bringing it up as of late.
He had earned the benefit of the doubt with the pro-Israel crowd because he's been very ardently pro-Israel. And I was expressing my own similar feelings because I felt like I was in the same boat. I've said almost nothing about Israel. Literally, I've said almost nothing. But I was also getting very weird pushback. When I was on with Tucker recently, he mentioned this, and I'll just read it to you. This was an article that was put out by the American Jewish Committee. They purport to stand for the rights of American Jews across the world. And this was after Charlie's event, at which literally I said nothing about Israel. It was at the Turning Point event. We were talking all about Epstein. And he said, do you think he's intel? And I said, it seems like he was some sort of an asset being used as intel, probably Mossad. That was my guess, since Ehud Barak had been spending the nights in Jeffrey Epstein's home. It seemed like he was very close with Israelis and their leaders. And there's an Israeli guy who specifically said Epstein was Mossad. He was a Mossad asset, and that this guy was his handler. I had an argument about this with Ben Shapiro. So look, I wasn't saying for sure. I was saying he could be ours, could be theirs. That's it. That's literally it.
Also, it could be both. But I think the more telling thing is that as she gets attacked for just that point, then that exposes it. 100% he was. There's no longer a doubt. Like, when you get attacked so voraciously for expressing such a tacit opinion, just it could be, not even saying for sure it is, well then now you're exposing your hand. And so anyone who's trying to argue that he's not, or he wasn't a Mossad asset, how can you do that? Like, it literally makes no sense. And again, he might be representing both. He might be Mossad and CIA. It could be a joint venture, which to me makes more sense because of how he was treated in the United States. So that is just my opinion of it. But yeah, I mean, you can't argue with that. And by her receiving pushback about that, well then you can't make any other point. No, nothing else, no other explanation makes any amount of sense on this topic.
And this American Jewish Committee puts out the following. Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly floated the baseless conspiracy theory that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent and admitted that they had no evidence. That doesn't matter because what people will remember is the lie. This isn't just irresponsible. It's a textbook example of how right-wing anti-Semitism spreads through conspiracies dressed up as innocent speculation. They gave oxygen to an age-old trope of Jewish control, and in today's climate, that's not just offensive, it's dangerous. So strongly object to that.
So, number one, saying that she had no proof. She literally just laid out the proof for all of us right there. And so I think she made a point. This is what leads me to this opinion. And instead of trying to, and this is what makes it so much more evident that this is the tactic that they're doing, is that instead of providing some sort of counterpoint or counter evidence or like, here's why he's not Israeli intelligence, they just immediately jump to anti-Semite. And that is every single time, anytime you say anything critical of them, that's what they jump to, because they have no counter argument, because what they're doing is genuinely awful and indefensible. So then they just try and smear you as an anti-Semite. And that's what happens all the time. You can listen to Tucker talk about it. You can listen to Candace talk about it. You can listen to Megyn Kelly talk about it. You can listen to Charlie Kirk talk about it. You could hear any of these people say that, oh yeah, they're trying to smear me. Because you step out of line one iota, one little amount. And all they were doing was literally, hey, here's the things I'm seeing. So to me, it seems like it could be possible. And again, instead of trying to argue it, they just jump to anti-Semite, which to me is a immense red flag. Basically, we have no actual way to argue against this, so we're just going to try and shout you down, which is a tactic I do not respect in the least amount. It's literally the woke left tactic, and I do not respect it at all. And so when it happens, that's just because there's no real argument, and or the person that you're arguing with isn't intelligent enough, which I do not think is the case here. I think there's no argument that can be made, and so they just jump to personal attacks.
Sorry that there are tropes about Jews. I've been fighting against them for years. It's bullshit. I hate anti-Semitism. Honestly, I've seen what my Jewish friends have gone through over the past 2 years, so they have to worry about getting killed when they go to temple. It's absurd.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and there shouldn't be. Because again, the actions of a few are not the actions of all. And so it's that saying where the 20% are responsible for 80% of the anything, right? So as an example, like crime, right? To completely remove ourselves from this, 20% of people are responsible for 80% of crime. And so that is exactly it, like through repeat offenses or whatever. So that is the thing here, is that 20% of the bad actions, so like Bibi Netanyahu or Peter Schiff or like all these people who we are saying are taking censorious actions, that's not the entire population. That's why anti-Semitism is awful, or any sort of racism is awful, is because, yes, you can make generalizations against anyone, right? Any group, you can have stereotypes and whatever, but that doesn't accurately describe every single person in that group. And that's the thing, is because I have many friends who are Mexican and act more white than anyone that I know. Like, that's the thing, is like you can't say everyone is a certain way. And 20% of the worst Israelis, like the Israeli government, all the people in the government, not even all, but like the people who are doing these things that we abhor, well, that's the 20%. And they're creating 80% of, they're essentially exporting anti-Semitism. Because by interfering in the U.S. and our desires are not being basically heeded at all, we're continuing to fund the genocide, we're continuing to send arms to Israel, like, as this is continuing to happen, well, then we're going to become more and more disenchanted. And as they're trying to silence people, and we see that here, and they can raise, hey, this is happening to us, well, then we get more pissed off here in the U.S. And that is going to raise, and justifiably so, I think, that's going to raise anti-Israeli sentiments and lead to anti-Semitism. Unjustly so. Because, again, the entire body of all the Jews are not responsible for what their government is doing. However, the actions of the government are so censorious and so grotesque that everyone's going to become fed up with the government, and then, ergo, all of the citizens and all of the people of Jewish religion living abroad, whether it's right or not. I'm in the camp of saying it's not right, but the more this happens, the more radicalized people are going to become against you. And I don't know how they don't understand this.
It's terrible what's happened on college campuses.
And oh, by the way, that just shows you, by the way, if you're an Israeli watching this, or if you're a Jew watching this, the Israeli government doesn't even really care about you. Because I guarantee you they're smart enough to get to what I just laid out, but they don't care. They don't care about you. They don't care about the average Jewish person. They don't care about the average Israeli citizen. They just want to meet their goals and what their end goal is, at the expense of everyone else, including their own citizens, including people who share their own faith. So, FYI, get better leadership, because they're pissing off and alienating everyone else around the globe, but specifically here in America.
Tearing down of the hostage posters. I mean, I've been at the forefront in criticizing it. But to say that in speculating about why Jeffrey Epstein got away with so much, maybe he was intel. And I didn't just say about Israel. It was like, I don't know whose he was. Mossad could make sense. We could make sense. That's crazy talk. You know, you can't have every speculation about Israel or mild criticism of Israel turn into anti-Semitism. All along, people.
And that's a good point, because that's literally the boy who cried wolf. And that's the thing. And that's why no one cares about racists anymore, is because the left called everything racist. So then when everything is racist, nothing is racist. Same thing. If everything is anti-Semitism, nothing is anti-Semitism. And that's actually incredibly dangerous, because as the lesson of the boy cried wolf, well then when an actual anti-Semite comes around and Hitler 2.0 actually rises up, well then nothing is anti-Semitism, and you can't decry it because you spent your time smearing Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk. So no one's going to believe you. and then you put yourself and all of your citizens and all of the believers of the Jewish religion at much more danger of something happening like that, because you decided to smear everyone as anti-Semitic, and now no one believes you.
Saying the Israeli defenders, you can criticize Israel, just don't be anti-Semitic. Well, don't try to take a criticism of Israel and make it anti-Semitism, because it upsets people who love our Jewish friends and love Israel. Just stop. So Charlie was offended. He didn't like it, and I didn't like it. And now enter this jerk, Abe Greenwald. He is a commentator. He's executive editor of Commentary Magazine. And he decided to attack me. And he came out last Wednesday after our show with the Fifth Column guys, in which I made very clear, of course, I am not playing this soundbite from Charlie because I think Israel had any relevance whatsoever when it comes to Charlie's assassination. As you know, I'm really clear on who killed Charlie. I believe that it was this trans guy. Well, guy dating the trans guy. And the Fifth Column and I had the following exchange around that Charlie soundbite and around some of the reporting about the Bill Ackman meeting, again, which I took no position on. I wasn't there. Watch this. Top 49.
I wonder why, before Charlie Kirk had been buried, the number of people that were talking about Israel. That's the thing that concerns me about why this is coming up. Why is it about the pet issue that she's been talking about, I think, obsessively for every time I tune in to, like, in these totally crazy ways? I mean, the guy Ian
Well, I don't know if
Carroll,
this is true of Candace.
Well,
but
I
obviously
think it
some
is,
people,
by the way.
no, but I was just going to say, but some people obviously were wondering whether Israel had a hand in this. I mean, that's clearly why it's come up, and there's zero evidence of that.
Yeah, then, oh, by the way, Bibi Netanyahu comes out with a statement before President Trump does, like a very short amount of time after the assassination happens. Like, that doesn't look weird. Again, the more they obsess with this stuff and the weirder they act around it, and then, oh, by the way, Israel didn't do it. He comes out on Fox News. He's come out 2 times now. He's been interviewed and said, oh, we didn't do it. Within a week's time, he did this. And it's like, yeah, why do you need to make that statement? You make yourself look guilty. Like, I don't come out and be like, I didn't murder my grandparents. Like, obviously I didn't. Why would I need to say that? And by saying that, you look a little guilty. Like, that's not something an innocent person needs to do. Like, why is there even a conversation around it to begin with? So, like, Megyn Kelly may not be going there, but, like, I certainly made a video about it, and oh, by the way, you're not doing anything to dispel any of those things. And the deeper that it gets dug into, the more guilty you look. There's a lot of question marks out there.
And there's zero evidence of that, is what I said. Then I went on Tucker's show, his live show that Wednesday night, and said exactly the same thing. Zero evidence. I said, I don't believe, and I know you don't believe, that Israel had anything to do with Charlie's murder. But we talked about that same strain of, like, why is there so much pressure against people who say other things about Israel that are not flattering? Yes, Tucker.
And to be quite honest, though, I do think Tucker leans in that direction. I don't think he's willing to call it out so boldly, but he does this thing, which actually I appreciate, where he'll kind of like, what is that? Like, and you know what he thinks. You can see it. You can see exactly what you can tell what his opinion is on it, but he doesn't want to say it himself. He wants someone else to kind of talk around it and or directly call it out. And understandably so, because you want some sort of plausible deniability on this topic, I think. But I think, and maybe Megyn is in this camp too, I haven't watched enough of her stuff to fully buy into this, but like Tucker, I've watched enough of his stuff to know he 100% does this. So yeah, they may not be saying it, but there's a reason why they're bringing it up. Same thing with Charlie Kirk. He may not have been saying it, but there's a reason why he has Dave Smith on debating. There's a reason why he has Tucker Carlson talking at the Turning Point USA conference. Like, there's a narrative that they believe, and whether they're able to actually say it themselves because of donor pressure or whatever it is, I mean, it's not hard to see kind of where they're directing the conversation.
Tucker's gotten more and more critical of Israel. Separate now out the Charlie thing. He's gotten very critical of Israel because he is worried about what's happening to Christians over there. And he's very worried that the United States is going to get pulled into that war like we almost were when they launched a side war against Iran. He's entitled to say that. And when I went on Tucker's show, he and I talked about like the level of pressure on Charlie and on me.
And that's the thing too, is that's why it feels especially egregious, I think, is because it's the United States. Like, we have freedom of speech. You can't crack down on us. That is going to make people want to lash out 100 times worse against you. Like, you need to be fully aware of the country that you are trying to police the speech of and the sentiments of those living within it. And so trying to muzzle Megyn Kelly or Charlie Kirk or Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, we are going to push back 100 times worse than any other country that you're going to try and censor the speech of those citizens within it. And so, yeah, and then you're going to radicalize them against you too. So like, this might be Megyn Kelly's point now, but the more, I guarantee you, the more that they attack her, the more she's going to feel like she needs to speak up against them. And whether she does it explicitly or she leads the conversation in that direction, who's to say? But I think it's more likely that it's going to happen now because of the way that the Israeli government and supporters of it are acting towards them.
To like cancel our friends, to stop talking to Tucker. Charlie, I respect Candace. I don't know her personally, but I'm dear friends with Tucker. But I've certainly had pressure to completely cut ties with Tucker. And I know Charlie had pressure to completely cut ties with Candace. And by the way, Charlie spoke to that too. So I'm going to show you part of my discussion with Tucker, and then I'll get to the message from Abe Greenwald. Watch this. And I just want to add as a period to this, as a footnote, I guess, to this, Tucker, you have a lot of it too. And it is the reason why Charlie is not the only one who's been threatened or was threatened to cut ties with you or not platform you. I too have gotten that, especially since you've been more outspoken on Israel. And I couldn't care less the amount of pressure they put on. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah. This is madness. Why would you want to silence such a powerful, important voice just because you disagree with them on one subject, one on which we've all watched you sincerely evolve as you grapple with principles you've been espousing for years, like America First, like what's happening to Christians, like what's best for us and our kids here? How do I keep them safe? That's my number one priority. And I've been just absolutely disgusted and recoiled from people who have tried to pressure me on it. It, of course, never happened. But I know from speaking to Charlie, he felt it too. You've heard it from Charlie that he felt, and there is a layer here of nefarious pressure to have certain narratives go only one way.
Yes.
That must be called out and must be fought. And let's face it, Charlie was like an unofficial spokesperson for the youth of America, in particular conservative youth. And I don't know if people have checked, but they no longer support Israel. And everybody under 30 is against Israel. Charlie was 31. And so as a friend, he's saying to them, and same way I, as a friend, am saying, I am telling you, you've lost Dems, independents, and you're starting to lose Republicans. You need to wrap it up. You've had a 2-year long leash. I know you want your hostages back, but this cannot go on until you have every hostage back. It's just not going to, you're going to lose every friend you have. And that's what he was saying because that's what he was hearing from his constituency. I, like you, have zero belief that this had anything to do with his death.
And here's the thing, too, about especially attacking figures like Tucker Carlson, is that Tucker Carlson has been getting more and more bipartisan support in that I was talking to someone who is very on the left. And I actually brought up, because I was talking about actually Tucker Carlson's conversation with Charlie Kirk, and they recoiled at me bringing up Charlie Kirk. But when I brought up Tucker, it was, oh yeah, actually I'm starting to come around to him. And that's the thing, is that the problem with trying to attack Tucker Carlson is that now that he is becoming because of the topics, I think because of the topics that he is covering. And now he's independent, so he's not tied in to Fox News. Well, now he's talking about things that actually affect the average human being. And the thing is with that is that now you hear the things that he talks about, whether it is why are we capitulating to Israel, whether it is, hey, there's a mental health crisis and our SSRI is having to do something with that. And, oh, hey, why are Americans feeling worse financially? And so he's covering these topics, and you can genuinely feel that he believes in what he's talking about. And oh, by the way, he just wants all Americans to do better. So guess what? Now when you're attacking him, you look like the bad guy, because there is, once again, bipartisan support bubbling up for Tucker on both sides, because he's talking about things that materially are making the lives of average Americans worse, and everyone can see that he's genuine about the things that he is saying. And whether or not you believe with, hey, he got here because of his Christian faith and that he needs to be a better example for people, and he wants to help his neighbor, and again, the conclusions you believe in, how he got there, you may not agree with, but you certainly can say he has a point, and I agree with, hey, we need to make these things better for everyone. And so by attacking someone like that, you look even more guilty, and more people, the left may be strongly entrenched, but centrists go, hey, Tucker is very even keel, level-headed. I really agree with a lot of the things that he's talking about recently, so I have support. Now you've lost the center, and oh, by the way, all the Republicans are still with him. You're losing them too. You can't attack these extremely popular figures who average citizens are spending hours listening to a week, tens of hours a month, whatever it is. You can't attack them and have us turn on them. That's not how it works. They have a large body of work. We know who they are at a certain level. You can't put hundreds and thousands of hours of content out and you think that you're going to flip our opinion on them. No, you're going to make us hate you, which is exactly what is happening. And that's the thing, is that is how the Israeli government and Bibi Netanyahu and all these people who have that as their number one interest, well, now you're disingenuous and we not just dislike you, we hate you because you're trying to tell us something that we know is not true.
Okay, so I think it's pretty clear. Before I get to Abe Greenwald, Mark Levin, to whom I've always been very nice, very kind. I have had no problem with Mark Levin. I see him arguing with everybody online. It's not my fight. He tweets out that segment, a piece of it, where I said everybody under 30 is against Israel with Tucker, and says, such disgusting bullshit, sick and getting sicker. They continue to reveal themselves. What is he talking about? It's not disgusting bullshit. There was an article in the New York Post just the other day. More than 60% of American Gen Z supports Hamas over Israel. Gallup just released a poll, days ago. Only about 1 in 10 adults under the age of 35 say they approve of Israel's military choices in Gaza.
And that's the thing, especially the first headline that she said, not just do not support Israel, support Hamas, a terrorist organization, as they're called. Support them over Israel. So how bad are you doing? What awful atrocities are you committing that 60% of Americans under 30 support a terrorist organization over Israel? Just think about that for a minute.
1 in 10 adults under age 35. What I said was exactly right, entirely accurate. That there is no cause for Mark Levin to be attacking me or Tucker over that discussion. He's out of line. People have been asking me to name names, like, who's attacking you? Because I said, but you get attacked if you... I'm going to name some names here. Mark Levin is one of them. Shame on him.
And this is exactly what I was saying, is that by attacking Megyn Kelly or Candace or Tucker, well, then guess what? Now they become more radicalized against you. And these are the people who we Americans are going to listen to. Like, we don't care what an Israeli has to say. And you can just see Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, his viewership not doing so great, not at the highs that it was, because you're supporting a losing position that no one believes you on. And now that you're attacking her, well, now she's calling you out specifically. And now her entire audience is not going to be interested in listening to anything that these people say. And would she have done that before? No. Like she said, she supports Israel. But the more that you pressure her and attack her, that never gets anyone on your side. That literally does the opposite.
He, like Charlie felt, you get no credit for being an open supporter of Israel. How many times can I say I am? Like, how many discussions have we had on this show? You guys know this. This is really gross, and I object to it, same as Charlie did. So now enter this guy, Abe Greenwald. So, by the way, on the subject of Commentary Magazine and Commentary's podcast with John Podhoretz as the main host, who I love. I think John Podhoretz is one of the most brilliant people we have. I really have admired him. I love Christine, who's on that show. Noah Rothman used to be on that show. Matt Continetti, brilliant. Like, these are guys I've listened to for years. And Abe Greenwald's on that podcast as well, who I've also enjoyed. They've been on this podcast. I had them over after 10-7. So I was shocked to receive this message. And I promoted that podcast. You may recall me mentioning that multiple times in the show. Abe Greenwald DMs me on X last Wednesday, September 17th. Keep going with the Candace theory. I think you got a real winner there. I'm sure you'll be vindicated. Stellar work. So he's being a sarcastic asshole. And I couldn't believe it. Like, what Candace theory? Candace has got her theory. Take it up with her if you don't like what she's saying. I distinctly said my own thing, which was not to endorse anything in particular about Candace other than to say, I do know how Charlie felt, and here it is. Play. So I finally got around to responding yesterday and wrote, I actually can't believe you're sending me hate mail as I'm grieving a dear friend getting his neck blown out before my very eyes, which you fucking know. I never endorsed any Candace theory. You're such a douche. And I have to pat myself on the back because that's exactly how I was feeling, and I said it with exactly the words I wanted to say it. And he responded today, I'm greatly moved by your grief. And what's more, awed by the strength it must have taken, given your state, to amplify the paranoid conspiracy theory of a well-known lunatic Jew hater. So this is what we're dealing with. How...
And oh, by the way, to put it in text, you literally... These people are so stupid. I don't know if it's truly they're actually tied to the Israeli government and they're just plants here. And so they're so Zionist that, like, their brains are rotted, or if it's that the Israeli government has just hired the dumbest people because those are the only people who can still support what's going on over there. But to put it in text where literally she can read it word for word, and oh, by the way, if you ever want to call it out, I bet you she has a screenshot of it that she could put out there as well if you're trying to tell her that you never said that. So, like, yeah, to put any of these things in text, at least with Charlie, they had the good sense to bring him to a retreat where it can't be shown in text, here is what was said to me. But, yeah, it completely blows my mind. Like, I'm not sure why these people are so stupid. But yeah, you're radicalizing people against you with every action that you're taking like this.
Pray tell, am I supposed to deal with somebody like this, who proceeds in the absolute worst faith, who gives you zero chips in the bank for being an ardent defender of Israel and American Jewish people going through what they've been going through? And this is one of the leading voices, one of the leading Jewish voices in America. And he seems pretty aligned with what the American Jewish Committee said. It's disgusting. And I have to tell you, it's undermining the very cause that he's hoping to promote. Like, this is not the way you treat your friends. Know the difference between a friend and an enemy. Israel and those who support it, they have enough enemies without making one out of somebody who loves them. And one other thing on the subject of pressure to abandon your friends, which it's never going to happen. Okay, just stop. No, nobody should be leaning on me to abandon my friendship with Tucker, to not platform Tucker. And it's not just Tucker. I get this about Glenn Greenwald too. It's just stop. That's not.
And it's just so weird to me because the thing is, like, this is why I have the stance of, like, we completely remove ourselves from the Middle East, because all of these people, to me, seems like, and I've never been there, so I could be completely wrong in my take on this, but all of them seem so religiously charged and so extremist that there's no way to have any sort of, calm, level-headed discussion. I think some of them are becoming a little bit more westernized, and that's fine, but that's why my approach to it is like Highlander. Let them all Highlander each other. There can be only one, and then maybe we try and be friends with whoever emerges as victorious. But, like, that's the thing, is they're so, I don't know if it's like what's been indoctrinated in them, but that's exactly what it feels like, is there's no reasoning with these types of people. It seems like everyone is exactly the same way, and that's why you can never solve whatever issues are going on in the Middle East. There's no solution, so why are we there? Why are we even trying? Let them all deal with it, handle each other, and I want nothing to do with it. But that's exactly how they're treating her, is that in that exact same mannerism. And again, Americans will not put up with that. Megyn Kelly will not put up with that. She's speaking, she made this video for a reason. Things don't get better from here, because I guarantee you she got a lot of blowback from this video. So things are only going to continue in a worse and worse direction. And this is how you stoke actual anti-Semitism in the United States.
Not ever going to happen. I don't believe their ideas are so vile that they cannot be platformed here. I'm interested in what they have to say. I may disagree with them. That's fine. They're my friends. I'm very interested in their opinions, and I always find them respectfully expressed. I mean, Glenn has a lot of really, ways into the Israel conflict that I don't get to hear that often, since I am such a supporter. And I would like to open my mind to what the side that's more critical of Israel is saying. And Tucker has a totally different, angle on the story, which I also find interesting. I may agree with it, I may not, but I don't get this, shut down your ears, do not listen, treat them like a pariah. That's crazy talk to me. And I happen to know.
Well, and that's how you win the argument, is that you present better ideas. Like, the way to prove someone crazy is to allow them to expose themselves as being crazy. Like, you're not going to convince someone that, Tucker is crazy because you say it. Like, it doesn't matter how many times you say it. Tucker has a voice. We can listen to what he says. Same thing, Glenn Greenwald. Love his reporting. He has a voice. He can present his ideas. The only way that you prove him wrong is you allow him to espouse whatever ideas he has, and you prove why he is wrong. You humiliate him. Do I think they're capable of doing that? Absolutely not, because I think they're in the wrong, and I think Glenn and Tucker and these people are all in the right. I agree with them. So, the amount of proof that you need to provide and the arguments that you would have to make against them, I think they have very sound arguments. I don't think the Israeli government has any, or any Zionists have any that I've heard. I don't know how you justify a genocide, but good luck. Good luck to you.
I know that Charlie felt exactly the same, and the reason I happen to know it is because he said it on camera not long before he was killed at one of his events, where he was asked about his dear friend Candace Owens.
How's your relationship with Candace Owens nowadays?
She's a great friend. Look, I don't agree with everything Candace says, but you know what I don't do? I don't stop being friends with people just because people morally blackmail me. I don't do that, and you shouldn't either. Look, I have different views on things as Candace. I have different views on Israel than Candace. I have different views on a lot of geopolitics. But honestly, I traveled the country with Candace. I went to her wedding. I saw her meet her husband. I went to Israel with Candace, which is a fun story I'll tell you at some point. But what I don't like is when people demand, you must stop being friends with somebody. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's a left-wing tactic. Don't do that. I'm not saying you do that, but other people do that. We should never resort to that. In fact, if you believe what I believe, shouldn't you want me to be friends with people that don't agree with us? Shouldn't you want me to also be a tool of influence And so I think the world of Candace. She's a great mother. She certainly has very, very fun opinions at times. And she's a great talent. She says a lot of stuff that sometimes I don't agree with, but that's what makes our relationship and our friendship interesting. My advice to all of you, you might not like somebody, but never tell somebody like me to stop being friends with somebody on an interpersonal level just because of disagreement. It's bad.
And that's exactly the point that I'm making. Is like, you can't tell him what to do because then he's going to backlash against it harder. And the other thing too is, very good point that he made, is that you want to try and, if you radicalize them and you say you're on an island over here, well, guess what? They're going to continue. Then you're creating an echo chamber for them. And then their rhetoric and their beliefs and their views are just going to ratchet up and up and up and up against Israel or whatever, pick a topic. But if you bring them in and you say, hey, let me talk to you about why, you might not be correct about this topic. Well, then that is how you bring someone back from whatever viewpoint that you're trying to, hey, you're misinformed on this. Let me show you why. And although that might not work on everyone, especially in our, current political climate, people who are intelligent, who are able to get to the sizes of the platforms that these people have, they're not stupid. You can influence through friendship and through genuine, hey, let's sit down and have a conversation. You can influence those types of people. You can't influence everyone, but you can certainly influence those types of people. And he's smart enough to be able to articulate that. And exactly to his point, by telling them you need to cut off those types of people, you're completely wrong. You're completely wrong, and this just shows another example of how the people who were calling him out for that, aka Zionists and the Israeli government, well then this shows you why you're in the predicament you're in. Because you think that these are viable solutions when they absolutely are not.
That's what the left does, and we should rise above it as conservatives. Thank you so much.
So it's very irritating, and I really, this is not true of all Jewish people or even their loudest spokespeople. I've never gotten this kind of grief from John Podhoretz, again, who's also on that podcast. There's something wrong with this guy, Abe, obviously. But I urge my Jewish friends not to go there, not to do this shit. I don't think any speculation about Israel belongs in the Charlie Kirk discussion. I set the record straight by playing his 4-minute clip. But I also think criticism of Israel on a standalone subject is entirely fair game. Charlie felt it. I feel it. And I've just had it. I've had it up to here with the Mark Levins and Abe Greenwalds of the world.
And that's exactly it. Is that by doing that, you're radicalizing her against you and your cause. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would you do this? And by acting in such a manner, it becomes readily apparent to everyone else, everyone who you're trying to win over. Well, we're listening to these voices, and we're seeing that you're trying to silence them, and you're attacking them, and hey, guess what? Now we don't like you. And right or wrong, that stokes anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic sentiments. And I truly don't understand how they don't see that. Anyway, I just thought this was an interesting video to take a look at. I think it proves the exact point that I've tried to be making, in that you're going to radicalize these types of people against you, who are the people you want on your side, and you want to be voicing pro-Israel ideals because they were in your camp. But now you've completely radicalized, or you're starting to radicalize them against you. And that's not going to end up well for you. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more content from me, click the subscribe button down below. It does help my channel grow. And if you have made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.